just going to share the link and then I'll open the tab. Okay.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Today we will be continuing with the fifth word, and we are on the second page of the fifth word. Last week we had read the initial analogy that the author offered us, which was that of two different soldiers, one being a well-trained and conscientious one, and the who concentrated on his specific duties and did not worry about the duties that the state had towards him, which was, for example, looking after him and sustaining him, whereas the other one was constantly after his livelihood and was admonished by the conscientious one, saying that he should trust in the king and that the king will not let him go hungry. And we left off discussing two duties. One that was the king's duty, which in which he feeds the soldiers, and the other one was the soldier's duty, which was training and fighting, which sometimes the king helps with them. And so we left off right after it, in which the author was going to start explaining in further detail the analogy that he gave. And this fifth word also started with the Quranic verse from chapter 16, verse 128, that says, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. Indeed, God is with those who are God conscious and those who do good. And we can, inshallah, try to approach this text as a way of trying to understand what that verse is trying to communicate to each of us right now, and here at the situation that we situation that we find ourselves in. So I will briefly read, there's really just like one page left. I'll start by reading the first paragraph on this page. That starts with, "Oh, my lazy soul." And inshallah, we can discuss it, ask our questions, and I look forward to hearing what everyone else thinks, whether they completely understand it or don't understand it. We can just try to look at it and think together. Okay. So it begins, "Oh, my lazy soul. That turbulent place of war is this stormy worldly life, and the army divided into regiments, human society. The regiment in the comparison is the community of Islam in this century. One of the two soldiers is a devout Muslim who knows the obligations of his religion and performs them, and struggles with Satan and his own soul in order to give up serious misdoings and not to commit sins, while the other is a degenerate wrongdoer who is so immersed in the struggle for livelihood that he casts aspersions on the true provider, abandons his religious obligations, and commits any sins that come his way as he makes his living. As for the training and instruction, it is foremost the prescribed prayers and worship. And the war is the struggle against the soul and its desires, and against the Satans among jinn and men, to deliver them from sin and bad morals, and save the heart and spirit from eternal perdition. And the first of the two duties is to give life and sustain it, while the other is to worship and beseech the giver and sustainer of life. It is to trust in him and rely on him. So here we're seeing that the author is really elucidating upon what each of the examples in the analogy he gave me, what they represent. So for example, the two soldiers were in a war, mobilized and training for it. And here it says that that war represents our stormy worldly life. And that the army divided into regiments represents human society. And the first question that I asked myself when reading this was, do I experience a war in my life? I mean, alhamdulillah, at least in the part of the world that I'm located in, as I assume most of you are as well, we don't experience a war. There is no like war zone that is going on outside of us, outside in the society that we live in. Although, of course, there are other perhaps societal struggles. But I do face battles and conflicts with myself, within myself, and these are ongoing. That's the war that I have access to, at least immediately, right? An internal war that I can readily experience in my day-to-day life. And I think in this paragraph, as we'll look into it in more detail, he goes into depth about what that internal war is like. So it says, just further continuing it, the regiment in the comparison is the community of Islam in this century. And within that community are the two soldiers that represent two different types of people, I would say, two archetypes perhaps. So one of them he describes as a devout Muslim, and who he describes as knowing the obligations of one's religion and performing them, and struggles with Satan and his own soul in order to give up serious misdoings and not to commit sins. Whereas the other one is one who complains to the true provider and commits sins apparently in the struggle for his own livelihood and sustenance. And I think the questions here that we can immediately ask is, what does it mean to know the obligations of one's religion? And what does it mean to struggle with Satan and one's own soul? I know that at the end of last week's discussion, it was brief, but in perhaps the last 10 minutes or so, we were discussing about how the war in this sense represents the struggle that I have against my own soul or my nafs, right? And its desires. How I struggle against the desires and ambitions that it has, as well as the desire to claim ownership over the sustenance that I may experience in my life, right? I am well off. I am able to have a nice dinner every night because I work so and so many hours and I'm in this position of this company and I studied this, and because of all of these and because of all of everything that I'm doing, I am able to provide for myself. There's this desire to be able to say that, to be able to claim that I look after myself and that I am responsible for my own livelihood. And in a sense that I have to acknowledge, wait a second, is this really true? can I really say that I provide for myself? If I claim that I am able to sustain myself, then I should, um, I even see that in my experience of things, I nourish or I eat from what is already created, right? I perhaps discover that certain veggies and fruits nourish me in a certain way because of the order that exists and that I can observe. But it's not like I'm able to create something separately to sustain myself, or that I'm able to create the process of sustainment or wellness. Um, uh, I think upon investigation and observation and reflection, I can really see that I am a recipient of all of these things. So there is that struggle, however, to not only claim ownership, and we can talk about this further, to not only claim ownership over the fact that I struggle and I provide for myself, but also the struggle to fight against desires or wishes of my soul that want to claim ownership over qualities, So I have so and such features on my face, and so I can claim the quality of beauty, or I write so and so and I go to so and so school, so I can claim the quality of intellect, or any quality really. There are all these qualities that I find in myself, and I'm also faced with the question of who is the actual genuine owner of such qualities? Can I claim ownership of them? Can I not? Um, and so, these are just, I think, one aspect of the certain struggle that I may have within myself. And I'd be interested in hearing what other people think. But for example, um, I would understand knowing the obligations of one's religion and performing them to mean that I I understand that I must acknowledge the creator that has given me the things that I experience, the sustenance that I experience, and that I must acknowledge him, um, and rely on him and trust in him, and not look to ideas or thoughts that represent um, a reality that doesn't exist, right? Satanic realities that have no genuine actualization in what I experience. But I mean, I think, we can ask further, what exactly does it mean to know the obligations of one's religion, perform them, and struggle with Satan? And I think the contrast is made nicely in terms of what the other soldier represents, because it says here that he is so immersed in the struggle for livelihood that he casts aspersions, complaints, right, on the true provider. So neglecting my genuine duty, which is looking to him, looking to the source of life and the source of provision, and thinking that I must somehow struggle and do and run around and try to seek livelihood. Thinking that in those struggles or in the work that I do, that is the actual cause of the livelihood that I may then experience, and abandons his religious obligations. Obligations that, as a human being who is honest with herself, who asks, what is the true source of existence that I experience? What is the true source of the existence of the sustenance, the various different provisions that are provided to me? Who is the true source of this? Who is the true provider of it? I'm, as a human being, I have to acknowledge that and act according to that acknowledgement, what that acknowledgement entails, live accordingly to it. So let me pause right here just to see if anyone else wants to say anything in terms of this. How do they understand what one's understanding of experiencing war in themselves would be like? I see that Brother Ali Murmur has his hand up, so I will give the mic to you.
Oh, thank you. It was a beautiful introduction. And I just wanted to add or extend actually what you touched upon. You said it very well. What is the heart of the problem that we are having in ourselves? So struggling against our own ambitions, etc., is it boils down to whether I claim that I am sustaining my own life, I am gaining and making my own bread and taking care of my life, or not. So we are studying the verse. It is a commentary, but it is an metaphoric way of figurative explanation of the verse, which is from chapter Nahl, verse 128. So, which says about those people who have consciousness of their creator, their owner. This is called God consciousness, taqwa, and also those who do good, which means in the language of the Quran, muhsin, acting in ahsan way or with ihsan, which is which we have to understand what is it to do with this, whether we are following ourselves, our own ambitions, claiming that I am making my life, I am organizing everything by myself, or someone else, or the creator of the universe, to make it short. Quran explains each other. Some verses explain the others. That is interesting to notice that the Quran explains most of things in telling the prophetic stories. Of course, the main aim of the Quran to teach us that, which is called, normally everybody uses a dualist attitude. It means I am going to pray now and then go to work. And of course, I shouldn't forget my word. That means the prayer is performed in the way of worshiping God, and the action is performed as I am making my own word. I am gaining my own bread. But the Quran says, it keeps us interesting, very interesting examples from the lives of the prophets. For example, everybody knows that Prophet Abraham thought that Ishmael, or his son, whatever it is, whoever he is, doesn't matter, his son has grown up enough so that he can be a support for his living conditions, because he's an old man and he needs a young, power, new generation, so powerful man, wise man, etc. He thought that his son is going to help him. And the God said, hey, be careful. What are you doing? Do you think your son is the help? Or do you think I am the help? And God said, okay, let us train you now. Slaughter that one if you can, if you really trust in your son, you cannot slaughter it. He says, no, why should I? How can I give up my job or my help, my first-hand aid within my own family? But Abraham realized that, of course, it is not his son going to help him. So he said he can leave it because his belief in God definitely a certain thing that God, the creator, can provide any means, and he is the one who takes care of my life. He employs everything, not me. He prepared, for example, my son. So since it is the case, he performed his belief or put into practice what he really believed. He said, okay, I can slaughter my son. It means get rid of him or leave him or don't trust him. I lay my trust in my God only. And then God said, okay, do it. And when he really intended to it, okay, that's it then. You can take it. Take him back. Why? Because of the realization that the means we use in this world are not the source of our provisions. When you realize it, God says, okay, then you can deal with your means with the consciousness that they are employed by the Creator. I mean, ultimately, Creator is providing you, not the means. In this case, Abraham's son. So another excellent example in the life of Moses. So when Moses went to Mount Sinai and God said, okay, I appoint you as an apostle, so worship me alone, okay? All right. So he said, so what is that in your hand? Moses said, that is my staff. I lean on it. Be careful with the word, lean on it. And I hit the tree leaves to feed my flock, my sheep. And other uses also, it means anything material means. And then God said, oh, you trust in your material means for your life, for your living. How strange. Get rid of it. It means throw it away. Moses said, oh yeah, I can do that, but what shall I do? Throw it away. Okay, his belief, Moses' belief in God, oh yeah, really, God is the provider, exactly like Abraham did, so that he threw it away. Oh, it became changed its nature now. It became a snake. It is not a dried wood stuff anymore. It is not a rod only. It is a living thing. How can I make it living? So how can I realize that it is not what I thought? The means that I am attempting is not what I thought. So God said, okay, don't be afraid. It changed its nature now because you trusted in God. When you trust in God, the universe, the creation changes its nature in your eye. We have to be careful about it, in your view. So God said, okay, take it back now. Since you could throw it away, now you passed the test. Take it away now. It means get back your means, but be careful, use them as I provided everything. And in your life, don't follow dualist understanding. While you are dealing with this world, with the God consciousness and with ihsan, knowing that everything is totally under observation of God. You can take it back. And of course, in the world, what you need to do you do it, but you are very much aware that, as our friend moderator told us, everything is directly created by God. These are just the means that we ask God, I need this and that. But they are not the source of our sustenance, source of our provision. We have to realize that. So that God said, okay, take it now, you can work. Go to the land and work, for example, or take care of your herd, but take care of your sheep. But your consciousness is cleared now. Do we see that how dualism is completely eradicated in the life of a believer in God? Another example, is an excellent example. It is difficult to grasp the meaning for it was very meaning, but I somehow understand a little bit with the help of other commentators, mufassir, those who people try to explain the Quran with the help of them. God said, okay, put your hand under your armpit. It means, you know, that when you put your hand under your armpit, it means you are not going to attempt to do anything. Do you get it? It's a symbolic teaching. So you are not going to do anything. Are you ready to do that? It means realize that with your own hand, you are not really creating anything. You are not providing anything. Again, using the means. One of them is his son, Abraham's case. The other one is his tool, Musa's first case. The second case is his own physical power. Because Musa in the description of the Quran represents two things at the same time: wisdom and power. So put your hands under your armpit. It means don't use them. Are you ready? Oh, how can I do? But Moses believed in God, and he was sure of his presence and actions in the world. He said, okay, I will do it. Okay, then. He did it. All right, you are ready now. As Abraham was ready to slaughter his son, and Moses in the first case to throw his staff, ready, because really that these are the explanation of taqwa, God consciousness, not word consciousness, God consciousness, not self-consciousness. It means self-consciousness means relying on yourself. No, now within yourself, your body also is not the means of making your living. So he said, okay, take it out now. When he took out his hand, it became enlightened. It means afterwards, after this realization, whatever you do with this hand will be a means of worshiping God, asking God, praying God. So what we learn from the teachings of the Quran in order to understand the word, the mysterious word used in this verse that we are studying, taqwa, ihsan, these are really magical words used by Muslims, the students of the Quran. But what does it mean? Oh, God consciousness, fear of God, what does it mean? What does it mean in practical terms? That's what we do in our discussions here. In practical terms, how are we going to benefit from the guidance of our Creator? But we have to watch out. We shouldn't lose ourselves in stories. Of course, God doesn't tell us story. Whatever he tells us definitely must be full of wisdom and guidance that we need desperately, we are in need of. He helps us. So in this way, we learn from, there are others as well, but this very, very sharp and striking examples of Abraham and Moses examples, we understand that we cannot divide our life into two categories. Religious practices are they call it ubudiyya, which is worship, or that's the prescribed practices. Do this, and our word life separate. No dualism. While you are praying, you worship God. While you are using your family members to help you, you worship God with God consciousness. While you are using your tools, your machines, your car to go somewhere, to the tools you use to do something, and maybe other material means that we are utilizing in order to make our life easy, maybe better life conditions, then I have to remember that the creator is God. These are just means. They cannot create anything. How about yourself? You also cannot create anything. With your own hand? No. With your own feet? No. Only the creator provides you with your hand, with your feet, with your body or eyes or air, whatever the means we have. They are all under the control of our creator. While we are using our eyes, we will say, my eyes is sharp to see. No. This is just a means. God shows it everything to me. My hands become enlightened with this consciousness. My eyes become enlightened so that I can see the truth, so that I can demonstrate the truth by using my hand, by using my leg, for example, my feet, for example. All of them becomes one unit. While I am performing my prescribed duties, I am worshiping God. While I am working in the field, I'm worshiping God. While I am cooking, I am worshiping God. But this needs a very, very strong or sure, secured God consciousness. And being muhsin, it means I'm doing this, but everything is under God's surveillance. I know He is creating it. He knows what He's creating it, and everything is under His order. The things are demonstrated within the order of the universe, but this decision, this demonstration is performed by God alone. No one can have any word, any power to change the order of the universe. It means will of the creator. That is what I understood from struggling against our ego. It doesn't mean that I should leave the army, as the example says, and go to the shop and forget about everything. No. God consciousness needs to be developed. Thank you very much. I know it took long, but it is exciting to see how the Quranic verses explain each other. And also it explains the heart of the first paragraph that we read today. I found it it is useful to share it with you. Thank you very much. Jazakumullah. Sorry for a long talk.
Thank you so much, Brother Ali, for that really helpful comment, sharing your thoughts. I think then we can say that, being God conscious, laying one's trust in God only, means not trusting in the actions that I may choose, or the people around me, or the things around me, objects around me, but recognizing that my source of existence, my creator, is the only genuine source of help and only genuine source of power and source of provision and sustenance. Everything else around me, I can see as being employed, as being a means through which my creator is again providing for me. And I think that there's a very delicate balance here because we, in a sense, require a fundamental, I would say, paradigm shift in what constitutes worship or prayer, right? And that worship and well, let me say prayer, in a sense, is anything that I ask for in the way of my actions as well as my words. So a classic example is when I study for an exam, I am, by virtue of studying, praying for a good grade on that exam because I am following the order that I am created in and that exists. So we are in a sense always in a state of prayer towards something, towards that which we vie for through our actions. And the result is always created for us. We ask for it and it is given. And I wanted to, we have a comment in the chat box that I wanted to acknowledge from Ty Simmons. Would you like to read your comment? If so, you can feel free to unmute yourself, or I can read it as well.
I can read it, it's fine. Let me see. So my question is, can you acknowledge our Creator and still feel proud of yourself? Meaning, like, can you be proud of an accomplishment that you've made, but acknowledge that the accomplishment is because of Allah, because Allah has blessed and allowed it? Like, I know, for instance, when I create, let's say, a visual or whatever, I'm always in acknowledgement, like, oh, Allah, thank you so much for the ability to create this amazing thing. But I also feel proud of myself too. So I'm not sure if that's right, or, you know what I mean? So that's basically the question.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. I think, I mean, these are just my thoughts, and anyone else afterwards can definitely feel free to speak. I think that, for example, in you know, the example that you gave, which might be engaging in some sort of creative activity, right? I think I would have to acknowledge that my engaging in, for example, let me give an example that maybe I'm more familiar with. If I'm writing, okay, if I'm writing, let's say, a book, the process of writing is in fact a state of prayer in which I am asking for a result. And if I end up seeing that a book is written, I have to acknowledge that I am not the genuine creator of that book or its meaning, but that by partaking in the order that that exists, I prayed for the result of a book and it was granted towards me. So I think it depends on what one means by proud or by pride. You know, if one is an acknowledgement that the ability is given and that I am not the genuine source of the result that I see before me, but that instead I can feel perhaps grateful that that ability is being manifested through me, or that quality is being reflected in me, and be grateful that you know, my prayer of writing or attempting through my actions was accepted. That's how I would approach it. I don't know if that, you know, let me know if that made sense or not. We have another comment that says, I have a possible answer. Please feel free to unmute yourself and speak up.
Hi, this is Sadi. Thank you everyone for your comments. It's been very interesting to listen to. Something that helps me with all of these ideas around having talents and whether or not we can be proud of ourselves is thinking that we all have the talents that we have and are able to accomplish whatever work we accomplish because of this lottery of talents that Allah hands to us, you know? So it's something that becomes your duty. It becomes your duty to accomplish work with whatever talents Allah gives us. So it is something that is made easier or harder based on whatever qualities we are given, and us rising to that occasion to complete work with the talents we are granted and with the qualities we are granted. I think that's something we can be proud of through our own free will, putting in the effort to actualize whatever dreams, ambitions we have with the qualities that we are given.
Thank you for that answer. If anyone else wants to speak up, please let me know. I think fundamentally, and I think fundamentally as relevant to the paragraph here that we read, is the idea that within myself, I always have the desire to want to claim ownership over a quality that I may manifest or an action that I feel like I'm performing. Whether I ran a marathon or I wrote a book, within me, I want to be able to say I did that rather than this was created for me. And it's about looking, can I be the genuine source of existence of the thing that lies before me? And so fulfilling my obligation as a human being and being honest with myself means that I am always and continuously a recipient, and he or the creator is always the one that gives. And I don't want to skip ahead, but the last sentence of this paragraph I thought was really lovely, because it says the first of the two duties that was mentioned also in the analogy is to give life and sustain it, while the other is to worship and beseech the giver and sustainer of life. It is to trust in him and rely on him. And so there are two duties outlined here. The first one looks to the creator, and the second one looks to the created. To give life and sustenance can only look to the one that is able to give life and sustenance, and to create any quality or to create any sort of accomplishment, to have the ability to create. And the second duty of acknowledging, trusting, and seeking the life giver, the creator, looks to the created me. So I can ask for things if I see within me the given potentiality towards a certain task or a certain we use the word talent, then I can ask for the creator to help me actualize that through the actions that I perform, which are in a sense, again, prayers. And I think Brother Ali was also emphasizing this, is that we live in this sort of dualistic worldview, or even a worldview in which religion or prayer, worship, anything to do with religiosity or God is kind of given just one slice of the pie. That's one slice of the pie in my life. And then there are other slices of pies in my life, which is, my work, and then my family, my relationships, etc., etc. And we sort of, in a sense, secularize our understanding or belief in the creator by just delegating it to one corner of our life. Whereas I imagine, I think it to be the flower, the fundamental component that informs every other aspect of it. It informs how I approach my work or career, how I approach my education, how I approach my relationships, because all of them, the successes I may experience in my school or my career, I have to see that I am not the source of them. The successes and accomplishments in the relationships I have to see that I am not the source of them. And that, the lovely qualities I may experience in other people, that they, maybe through their free will, are choosing to reflect qualities that also do not belong to them. So I think it's always about recognizing the true provider, the true creator, and my duty fundamentally is to not worry about the creating aspect of it, because I am unable, completely impotent in being able to do that. But I can ask for it. I can ask that it be created for me, and I can acknowledge when it is created and when I do experience it and rely on him, instead of things like, if I lose my job, then I will never be able to sustain myself. Yes, there is an order in this world, and yes, I do need to work, but I have to also acknowledge that the work is not the one taking care of me, is not the one providing for me. Yes, I need perhaps friendship and love from my family. I can't just live in solitude, but they are not the source of the love and companionship and compassion that I experience. So I think it's not about isolating myself and becoming a hermit, right? We can't do that. We have to live within the order of the world as we experience it. We have to study, and we have to work, and we have to try, and we have to have relationships, but always not see them as the source of the thing that we enjoy or that we seem to receive from them, but always see them as being employed by the creator, as a means, as a vehicle. So Batul has a comment here. Would you like to read and further explain it, Batul?
Yeah, sure. So I was just responding to the question earlier, and I think you gave a very interesting example of writing a book or a paper. And so in your example, it seems, akin to citing sources in a paper or a book. You're still happy with your work, or in the sense, proud of your work, but you recognize and acknowledge that there are many sources, many institutions, many people that supported you in the completion of that book, right? And so I thought it was interesting that in books, right in the very beginning, there's a page called the acknowledgements page. So the people you acknowledge or the institutions are not necessarily co-authors, but you recognize their role in employing you to write that book. And I think going back to the original question, it's not that you can't be proud in the sense of your work or your book, but I think there's a difference in the level of the pride, and maybe absolute pride, right, is the lack of recognizing your Lord and the employer, of your gifts and of your skills. So I think just making that distinction is important here.
Thank you, Batul, for that lovely comment. Yeah, I think that's a really lovely example, and I would go so far as to say that it's an acknowledging that really there is a single author. I utilize my free will in making a choice between maybe choosing this word or that word, but the result is completely created by a single source and not me. And here, in just going back to the paragraph, then I again understand the devout, the one of the soldiers who knows the obligations of his religion, who understands the obligation of the beliefs that she has or that he has, right? So if I acknowledge that I have a creator and that this universe has a creator, what are the obligations of that as well? I have the option, of course, there are certain worldviews in which I can see God as creating the world and then leaving it behind now, right? And now I am the one creating my actions and providing for myself, and this is an option for me. There are many there are certain mindsets and ideas that adopt this view that yes, of course, we were created, but right now, as far as I'm concerned, I have to deal with my life right now. But I have to investigate whether this option can actually represent reality, whether it can be true at all. Is it at all possible for the things that I observe right now in my life, outside my life? Is it at all possible, for example, I have a plant next to me, for it to grow by itself? And so, again, tying it back to the analogy, my duty in terms of the obligations that look to me are worship, acknowledgement, right? recognizing the giver and sustainer, and trusting and relying on him. And as was elucidated earlier, trusting in him and relying on him is not necessarily isolating myself from the other employed vehicles of life, right? Whether that's people or things or objects, but it's recognizing that they in and of themselves have no power, have no agency. For example, I was thinking of people, not people, but the order, the things that like the staff of Moses that Brother Ali was talking about. It's a means. It's not the source of support. It is employed by the Creator for him. And fundamentally, here again, there is the essence of a war, a struggle that I have against my own ego, because I do have the desire to want to be the sole author or the true creator of things, but I recognize that as a human being I am needy, but that it's through these needs that I am provided for, right? The fact that I am needy is not a bad thing. Acknowledging that is acknowledging my reality and seeking refuge in my Creator. Would anyone else like to say anything at this point? Okay. So in the example that he gives of the second soldier, who he explains is a degenerate wrongdoer who is so immersed in the struggle for a livelihood that he casts aspersions on the true provider, abandons his religious obligations, and commits any sins that come his way as he makes his living. I think that this again represents a worldview in which one thinks that because they are the source of their own sustenance and livelihood, they must do anything and everything possible to try to seek it, without recognizing that they have a creator and that they owe obligations and duties towards that creator. Again, in the analogy, the author had talked about how these soldiers are obligated with training and instruction, right? That's their duty, is training and instruction. And he says here that they represent foremost the prescribed prayers and worship. So not just, but of course not neglecting their importance, the prayers that we may physically do throughout the day, but also worship as in acknowledging the Creator throughout our day. And worship can take many forms, as discussed. I can be in a state of worship if I am at school studying, or if I am at work working, as long as I acknowledge that, okay, the Creator of my education, the Creator of my intellect, the Creator of my sustenance is one. And everything, this institution, learning institution, or this company are just being made means to meet me with that sustenance. And amidst all of this, again, there is that conflict, the war, the struggle against the soul and its desires. Because every day I have new experiences, right? I'm faced with new qualities, and I have to constantly decide. I have the choice to make. Do I appropriate them, or do I direct them towards their true source? Appropriating the creation of the Creator is not acknowledging or denying that He is the sole source of existence of it. And then he continues to say, And the war is a struggle against the soul and its desires and against the Satans among jinn and men to deliver them from sins and bad morals and save the heart and spirit from eternal perdition. Saving the heart and spirit. I'm just going to look up what perdition meant. From like eternal punishment, basically. Or I would maybe take it as eternal despair. You know, what is it that will lighten my heart and my spirit and bring ease to it? That's how I understand it. Does anyone have any questions? And the final two sentences we kind of discussed, which were the regarding the duties. Does anyone have any questions or inquiries or further comments about this paragraph? If not, I'm going to move ahead onto the next paragraph, but I'll pause here for a moment. Brother Ali, please go ahead.
That was a beautiful question. Can I be proud of myself? I'll try to make it short. We are the products of the civilization, a secular civilization, which emphasizes on it a lot and hammers on it self-confidence. That self-confidence is abused. Of course, self-confidence is necessary, otherwise we cannot use whatever our Creator has provided for us. But the opposite of self-confidence is not I don't know how to say it, inconfidence or not having any confidence in yourself. No, the Quranic presentation of self-confidence is a very interesting word, hasbuna. God suffices us, or hasbuni. God suffices me. It means confidence must be put in our Creator. So we should be careful when we say that. For example, my hands are created by God. That is right. Of course, no one can claim that I created my hands. But the problem, sensitive problem, comes in now on this fine line of distinction. Now, no one says that I created my hand. Everybody is prone to claim that all the work I do with my hand is my tenant. No, just a minute. You are just using it. It means we choose to use it rather than not to use it. All the functions that the hand performs are given by its Creator, and the result is created by God. I am just asking God to create it for me. I am choosing to acknowledge that the Creator is God, not me. So we have to be careful when you say the universe is created by God. It doesn't mean that whatever is happening in the universe is independently happening by themselves. So, for example, simple example, a tree can be proud of its fruit. Can the tree create the fruit? The answer is obvious. No. Can you create the result of your actions of your hand? That is puzzling. That is makes people to draw back and say, yeah, but I am trying to learn more. You are trying to learn more, that's correct, but with what? All the tools are created by not you. You are given, even the free will to choose is given to you. So the fine line here we have to have confidence in our Creator. We have to be proud of our Creator. We are just asking, utilizing all the means provided for us. While we are utilizing the means, still we use the qualities, tenets provided by the Creator. No one can claim that I created the result of the choice. For example, I choose to do something, but next moment it is created, it is given existence. I am not in the position to claim that I have the authority over my tenant. For example, if you reach my age, you will practically understand that God is giving will give you the opportunity to realize that it is not you who is really using it. Your eyes start not seeing it. You cannot make it see. You can wear glasses, but eyes are the same, functioning in the same way. This is also, glasses are also provided by the Creator because it is taken from the order of the universe. People utilized what is already existing in the order of the universe. So we have to be proud of the Creator who provided us with the opportunity to find out to make glasses or lenses, actually, in general. So this realization, this consciousness takes us to the conclusion that whatever I do, I must be proud of my Creator. I am just humbling myself before the Creator by saying, oh my God, you blessed me with this result. Not only you blessed me with the hand that I did wonderful work. No, you blessed me with the result of wonderful work. This fine line must be drawn carefully. That's why Quran repeatedly says, those people who believe in God must put their trust in God and must realize that God is the one who suffices them, who is enough for them, not themselves. So we have to be careful by acknowledging that God created me. It doesn't mean that the work I do is created by me. Yes, we say universe is created by God, the tree is created by God. Can you say tree is growing the fruit? Yeah. What is the difference between me and tree? Tree doesn't have the free will, so that he cannot have the option to claim that I am proud of myself. How beautiful I produce this fruit. But human beings have free will. We can claim only to be proud of the actions we perform. But in fact, there is, as far as the creation of the actions are concerned, there is no difference between the tree and the fruit, and between my hand, me, and my work. Only I have the option to choose or not to choose. Tree doesn't have this option. That is why we have to be extremely careful not to fall into the trap of the secularized civilization, culture, which says never lose your self-confidence. That is correct. Of course, you shouldn't use self-confidence, but you shouldn't be proud of yourself. You should be proud of your Creator. That is the difference. But in the secular civilization, there is no concept of Creator. So self-confidence turns into self-pride. That is the division between the secular civilization, the difference between the secular civilization and what the reality of this world presents to us, which is explained in the Quran. Quran says you have to be proud of your creator. So what does Allahu Akbar means? God is great. What does Subhanallah means? He doesn't need me to do something in order to create. He creates anything he wants. But in my human case, he gave me the free will. According to my choice, he creates it. I think this is a fine point, and I just wanted to share it with you. Thank you very much. I spoke a lot again. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
Thank you very much. Your thoughts are always welcome. Thank you. So at this point, I will move on to the next paragraph if there are no other lingering questions or comments. Here's your chance. All right, okay. So let's continue on. Indeed, whoever made and bestowed life, which is a most brilliant miracle of the eternally besought one's art and a wonder of dominical wisdom, is the one who maintains and perpetuates it through sustenance. So whoever made and gave life, which is the most brilliant miracle of the eternally besought one's art and a wonder of dominical wisdom, is also the one who maintains and continues it and perpetuates it through sustenance. So whoever created me must also be the one who's continuing to provide for me and continuing my existence as well. The origin of my existence, as well as the current provider of my existence, must be the same. And he continues, it cannot be another. Do you want proof? The most impotent and stupid animals are the best nourished, like fish and worms and fruit, and is the most helpless and delicate creatures who have the choicest food, like infants and the young of all species. And I think we really experience this, that sometimes the most helpless or the most impotent, I think, even beyond animals, if we're not maybe super knowledgeable about animals like fish and worms, like we all see babies and babies literally can't move, can hardly move. Parents start to get excited when they're like moving some joints, maybe turning a page of a book, and yet they probably get the most organic, the most nourishing, the most healthiest foods of all. Their cries are continuously answered throughout the day. I think it's really a beautiful example of how one's impotence is also one's greatest asset, in a sense. Acknowledging that I'm needy, acknowledging that I have no ability to provide for myself, is not a bad thing. And sometimes that's also averse to the society that we live in which having that or acknowledging that vulnerability somehow is a detriment, rather than here it's saying that it is what connects us and what allows us to acknowledge that our Creator is always looking for us. I will continue on. For sure, it is enough to compare fish with foxes, newly born animals with wild beasts, and trees with animals in order to understand that licit food is obtained not through power and will, but through impotence and helplessness. It is enough to compare fish with foxes, newly born animals with wild beasts, and trees with animals in order to understand that licit food is obtained not through power and will, which again seems to be the dictum of our societies, like power and will, but rather through impotence and helplessness. That is to say, but impotence and helplessness directed towards in the face of our Creator, right? Not in the face of other creation or other people. That is to say, someone who gives up performing the prescribed prayers because of the struggle for livelihood resembles the soldier who abandoned his training and trench and went and begged in the market. But to seek one's rations from the kitchens of the all-generous provider's mercy after performing the prayers, and to go oneself so as not to be a burden on others is fine and manly, or I would say humanly. It too is a sort of worship, right? So I think this, is further emphasizing a lot of what we discussed today, which is that, acknowledging our weakness, acknowledging our inabilities, is not a bad thing, but it must also be done within our relationship with our provider, with our Creator, right? This doesn't mean that we have to beg from others or declare our neediness to others, because they're also created, right? But rather to one who is not of the nature of this world, who is not of the nature of this universe, who is not created but must be the Creator. And he says here that this is, similar to someone who gives up his own duties, like someone who gives up the prescribed prayers because they have to work or because of some other apparent obligation, resembles the soldier who gives up his post, his training, and goes to beg in the market place. Whereas, as was explained in the analogy, he's going to be given food, he's going to be given shelter, he's going to be taken care of, but what he needs to focus on is the duty that looks to him, which is his training. But instead, if one seeks rations from, and I enjoy the phrase of this, the kitchens of the all generous provider's mercy after performing the prayers, so to seek sustenance from God, not just verbally, but also to then go out, not be a burden to other people, right? Doesn't mean that we're self-independent, that we're completely independent. No, we are dependent on our Creator, but there's a difference between acknowledging that dependence on the Creator and then being dependent on other people. And then to go and work, in whichever way we do in the way that we exist and function in society, that too is worship, right? So here a new definition, not new, but a more comprehensive definition of worship is being offered to us. Worship is acknowledgement, and worship is also acting according to the order, going to work, going to school, fulfilling the day-to-day obligations that we may have as members of society in whichever capacity that we do, but also knowing that we are being provided for by a single source. So I mean, I would love to hear other voices beyond my own. It can get tiresome to hear one's own self. We do have a hand up. Okay, Abdurrahman, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. So, thank you everyone for your comments and contributions. I think the area I want to focus on, and we just read it here, it's talking about how, if someone gives up performing the prescribed prayers because of him struggling for livelihood, this is like the soldier who abandons his training and then goes to beg in the market. And I'm thinking, how can I see this in my life? Do I see such a thing in my life where maybe I should be performing something. Like I know that, you know, if I acknowledge that I am a created being and I have a creator, and that there are, you know, my creator is the one that determines like how I should live my life, and I acknowledge that, then, you know, there are certain ways that I should be living, and there are certain ways that I should not be living. So like there are rules in place, and there are some boundaries I have, and, you know, like simply, you know, I shouldn't go and steal, but also I shouldn't like steal in the sense like I shouldn't think that my sustenance is coming from a tree, or my sustenance is coming from like my boss or my employers or my company. You know, that's also one form of stealing. And so I shouldn't be doing these things, but I'm thinking like, could I be, are there areas where I want to give up my prayers to go seek my livelihood? And, you know, I'm thinking like, maybe this happens when, let's say you really want something, or you really desire in your life for something to be a certain way, whether this is success in career, in school, or in something else, or you really, really want something, and maybe you even like you try to go about it the correct way, you know, by praying for it. You know, I'm making like the quotes with my hands here, like you pray for it, or like you seek it from God, but it's not granted to you, let's say. So you say, okay, I'm going to take matters into my own hands, or you think that, okay, then I need to cut corners, or you start, you know, before maybe you thought you had belief, and you had you were submitted to your creator, and that you were just going to take the steps that were allowed to you and see what he created. But you said, but when it wasn't being created, you couldn't accept that. Maybe you weren't being given success in school or your work, or you wanted to, now you extremely focused on that, and you said, no, I will then get my success myself. And you took, maybe you said, and then maybe you stopped valuing your studies or your belief, or maybe you actually did actually stop praying, and you spent much more time. Hello? Yeah, I got muted. I think I'm good now. Someone tell me where I was lost.
The part where I think you were talking about taking matters into your own hands and stopping the activities that you were doing prior to that.
Okay, so yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is I see that in my life, when I have a tendency, when I'm not given something that I want, it could be anything that you desire, and you desire it heavily. You know, you understand you're a created being. You understand that your creator is the one that is creating everything for you, and that, you know, nothing you do can create the results. However, uh, when, you know, a result that you really wanted is not given to you, this makes you angry potentially. Maybe this you feel like you're not given what you wanted, so you have this desire within you to be like, okay, then I'm just going to go get it myself. I will be this independent being. You know, you stop realizing your place and your purpose, and you say, I'm going to go get it myself. You start wanting the result for itself, rather than seeing the result as a means to something. So I could, you know, if I saw like a correct mentality would be like, you know, the career itself, or the success itself, or the pleasure itself, or the desires I have by themselves, they're actually just not going to do anything for me. Like me seeking to sustenance, even just like sustenance for sustenance sake, it's still not going to fulfill the million other needs I have. I need something much more than that, much greater than that. So when I abandon, or let's say when I make my sole focus like a desire that I want to fulfill, like I want to be the best at something, and I don't care what I sacrifice in this path, then this means that I kind of make, let's say, my uh, purpose in life, or my God, or becomes this desire. and I start not valuing the other things like prayers, and I see these prescribed prayers are like the path that I am given. Like I can't just live my life as I want to live it. I can there is a purpose. Like there are rules in my existence given to me. Like I have to obey and abide by what the creator, what, let's say, my sustainer, my caretaker, I have to abide by the rules that he has given to me, and also by the creation that he has given to me. And it is not for me to something as simple as, let's say, like a very easy example is like alcohol. It's not for me to reach out my hand and go drink alcohol when I want to drink it. I am not allowed to do that. Similarly, just as in fasting, I'm not allowed to reach out and eat food with my own hand. There is a rule there in place. And when it comes to seeking your desires, or you have these desires in you, and you're like, I'm trying to like be more clear on what I'm trying to say. I realize it's not so clear, but I think like the basic idea of why someone would leave their prescribed prayers to go reach something is when their desires become their Lord, when their desires are what they start worshiping, and it becomes that I care most about this desire, not about my creator. I care most about this desire, not about my purpose in this world. And then you start making sacrifices when you start, associating other things with God. And sorry, that's all I have to say.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you, Abdurrahman, for sharing your thoughts and for that comment. I think at least what I tried to understand from your comment is that, I have to answer the question, what is it that I seek? And even if when I pray to my creator, to God, for something, if I do not see him as the actual source or as the sole provider, then I can be deceived into thinking that somehow there is a different way of attaining that which I seek. And even if it's things like sustenance, right? I can have all the sustenance in the world, but as an example that we usually give, if you multiply it by 0, if there is no eternal source connected to it, then it's 0. But if you multiply it by 1, you get the same number. It's internal in a sense. So here I think it's about knowing that, for example, the soldier who goes and begs in the marketplace, he does not realize that the marketplace is just a means, just a vehicle that is also employed by the same source as a means to give provision. And when one loses sight of that same source, then one thinks that there are alternative routes, or tries to self-attribute or attribute the quality of giving provision to other things. But thank you. If anyone wants to add anything else, perhaps in response or just as an additional comment, please feel free to. So let's see. Okay, I mean, we have about 5 minutes, but maybe we can try to read a bit more and even conclude it if the rest is conclusive remarks. We'll see. Okay, so let me continue to read. Furthermore, man's nature and spiritual faculties show that he is created for worship. For in respect of the power and actions necessary for the life of this world, he cannot compete with the most inferior sparrow. While in respect of knowledge and need and worship and supplication, which are necessary for spiritual life and the life of the hereafter, he is like the monarch and commander of the animals. So in terms of the abilities and power that is necessary to have life, to have existence in the world, to have any sort of sustenance in this world, I can't even compete with a bird. A bird is better at sustaining for themselves than I am. But in terms of knowledge and acknowledging my neediness and being able to acknowledge the source in a conscious way, utilizing my consciousness in a way in which I reflect over the existence of things and acknowledge the source and creator of them, and imbue my day-to-day actions with that consciousness, which is worship. And these are the necessary ingredients for contentment and ease in my humanness, in my spirit. Then I am like a monarch or a commander of the animals. You know, I have been given the ability to do this to the highest level because of my consciousness and my ability to and the given ability to think and reflect and read the meaning in creation. And finally, he says, "Oh, my soul, if you make the life of this world the aim of your life and work constantly for that, you will become like the lowest sparrow. But if you make the life of the hereafter your aim and end, and make this life the means of it and its tillage, and strive in accordance with it, then you will be like a lofty commander of the animals and a petted and suppliant servant of Almighty God and his honored and respected guest. Those are the two ways open to you. You can choose whichever you wish, to ask for guidance and success from the most compassionate of the compassionate." So here again, would you like to make a comment? We have a mic open. If not, please mute yourself. Or co-host or host can also mute the person who has their mic on. Thank you. So again, if I try to strive for my own sustenance, or have the illusion that I can strive for my own sustenance in this world, then I'm going to find myself decrepit, right? Like I can't even pass the bird in that respect. But if I try to read the meaningfulness that is inherent in creation, if I try and utilize the given qualities, the human qualities within me, to look at my interactions, look at my feelings, look at my relationships, look at the experiences that I face day to day, and read them in terms of how they reference and how they signpost towards the qualities of the Creator, then I would be putting to use my consciousness and my human qualities in the way in which, for the purpose that they were given to me. And, as he says, I can do both. I can either utilize my human qualities in the way that they were for the purpose that they were given, or I cannot. And that's free will. I'm given free will to either acknowledge reality as it is or deny it, and act against the genuine nature of reality. So those are my concluding remarks. But again, I guess going back to the initial verse of this fifth word, which was in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. Indeed, God is with those who are conscious of him and those who do good, ihsan, right? And I think this fifth word, as we've discussed this week and last week, was elucidating what exactly it means to be conscious of God, how I can imbue, how I can paint my day-to-day experiences and actions with consciousness of God, which is always redirecting the qualities I see and the results and actions that I see to him as the single creator, and acknowledging that I am continuously and constantly being provided for, and that my neediness is really the key to being able to acknowledge all of this. Alhamdulillah, that's all I have to say in terms of this fifth word now. if you have any questions or comments, you can ask them. One person says, can you scroll down to the end of the document after the sparrow? So maybe the next page, yeah. And if you have questions, maybe we can take them next week, or next week I'm pretty sure we'll be starting the 6th word. But thank you everyone. Jazakallah khair. And assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.